Welcome. Oh, there we go. Boy, everything's all fucked up tonight. Welcome to Lawfully Chaotic. Hey, before we start, I forgot to click local recordings again. That doesn't matter, right? We can
No, it
still
doesn't.
download this. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, in that
Off to a
case,
great start.
welcome to Lawfully. Yeah. I'm going to run the countdown again. Welcome to Lawfully
welcome
Chaotic.
to Kaz 101 FM. I'm here
it.
with you all night long,
Okay,
playing the
stop.
same song until we fall asleep with our marijuana bong. Yep.
Jason is on medication for a head cold, so clearly.
Oh, I'm supposed to take medication?
You're not. Welcome to Lawfully Chaotic, episode 39. Thank you for joining us. I am Brian Weiss of RPG and Company, and with me, as always, are my awesome co-hosts and partners in crime, Sharon Smith, Barry Bott, and Jason
Hello.
Baldrick, the storyteller from TTD Academy.
I'm the sane one of the group, guys.
That's scary.
No, that should be expected. I'm okay with that.
That to be expected. Welcome. Thank you for joining us tonight or for watching later on if you are watching this VOD. Tonight, we are going to be talking about creating your campaign. But first, any announcements? The only one that I have is we will be here next week on the 8th of December. And then we are taking the rest of the month of December off to make some, go on vacation, enjoy the holidays, and make some improvements and programming headway and plans.
Yes.
Decking the halls all month, guys.
Sharon, you got any announcements?
Let's see. I guess a new update would be that I actually purchased Dragonlance to read, so I'm pretty excited about that. I've been hearing a lot of good things about Dragonlance. Shout out to Epic Jim for telling me all about it. So I'm really super excited to read more fantasy books now. So the last one I think I read was like Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. So it's been a while. And Saturday's Graylands campaign at TTRPG Academy, Twitch, and YouTube channel. Check that out. And yeah, that's pretty much all the news that I have from this side of the web.
I launched 3 new campaigns this week. A new Tuesday night campaign, 2 Wednesday night campaigns. So busy week.
It seems like every week you're launching new campaigns.
Well, officially we kicked off session 1.
Okay,
so
gotcha.
We had done session 0, did all the prep, and then we're officially, kicking them off.
Okay,
all 3 of these, including 2 others, may actually be on Twitch.
Cool.
I'll have a final roster of all the new games that we'll be streaming within the next week or so.
Awesome.
So, yeah, I'm pretty excited about that, to share all the fun stuff. Tonight's subject is definitely a matter I hold very dear, considering what I've been doing all November.
Indeed. Also, I have 2 other announcements. I just realized I forgot to update your logo on the Lawfully Chaotic overlays.
Motherfucker.
We just finished some TTRPG Academy logos. You should be seeing those on the stream soon on Jason's games, and I'll post that
Sooner rather than later.
And I'll update that. And I forgot, there was one bit of news. I'm not sure if everybody saw today or not.
Yeah, it dropped. The new D&D 1 dropped.
Yes.
Oh, man.
Yep, all about clerics, life domains, subclasses, and the biggest piece of news from this is that the hell is that? There are no races anymore. There are species.
Sounds like they're condensing.
No, really, I think they just changed the vernacular. And yeah, that could be, we could have a whole show about that. But let's stick to our topic tonight.
They changed it to spices?
Yeah, they did.
Now you have to choose a spice?
Yes.
All right.
I'm gonna go
I'm
with
going to
oregano.
be yeah, I'm gonna be a tarragon life cleric.
I want to be a turmeric moon cleric.
So anyway, but in case you weren't aware, the third drop of Unearthed Arcana D&D, I'm sorry, 1 D&D rules
Yeah,
are out.
careful, Brian.
Still a stupid name.
I'm not saying anything. Okay, so anyway, Sharon, why don't you lead off this adventure?
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Lawfully Chaotic. Tonight's discussion is going to be about creating a campaign, your very own campaign, whether it's you're brand new to DMing or you've just been around the block a couple of times over the years. Tonight, we're going to be discussing on how to create it from the ground up and to make a grand finale for all your players. So it's going to be broken up into 3 different acts. Ooh. So to kick us off, we are gonna jump right in. So guys, over the years, how many campaigns have you created? And also, what are some campaigns? What are some? Are there good campaigns or are there bad campaigns that you've written or have been a part of yourself? Brian?
Oh, please, Brian. Yes. I see that wicked smile.
No, there's no
That
wickedness.
curl.
No, I'm smiling because I've written some pretty shitty campaigns way back in the day. I would say, to be honest, like
Oh my God, that means you've been lying to us all this time?
I have been, yeah. Everything that I've said up until now on the show has been a lie. So
Yeah, isn't part of DMing just playing it off?
and lying, yeah. No, I think I've probably only written, including the one that I'm writing now, 3 like long-term coherent campaigns over the course of my D&D career. It's been a lot of start stops. It's been a lot of like adventures and piecemeal type stories, but I'm really excited about the one that I'm writing now, which I've mentioned. I've got a couple of and I'll go deeper when we start talking about how to structure it. But I've got a couple of groups running through it that are actually helping inform my writing of the campaign, kind of as it goes. I'm like one step ahead of them, and I really like where, especially one group is going and how they are playing through it. So it's helping me develop this campaign and actually write it. And my plan with this one is to actually fully write it out and publish it.
So this will be a model for future campaigns, do you think?
In terms of how I write it, or
Yes, because it seems like you're going from a collaborative standpoint with your players, building the game as you go along rather than having the structure to begin with.
That remains to be seen. I think
Okay.
a lot of that in this instance, I have to attribute a lot of it to how fantastic this group is. They all know each other. They all went to college together years ago. They're my age, ish.
There.
Brother.
But they're really fun to play with, and they're really thoughtful on how they play, and they're really great role players. 2 sessions ago we had 3 hours of combat, just took a long time, and Monday night we had 3 hours of, I think 3 people rolled dice for skill checks at one point, so it was 3 hours of role playing, and they fully enjoy both. So anyway, to answer a simple question with a really long answer, I would have to see how it plays out with this one, and how what kind of groups I would have in the future, on whether or not I would do it the same way.
Okay. And Jason, what campaigns have you written that were either good or bad?
I'm very self-deprecating for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I used to write very detailed and very granular.
Hmm.
And then I learned that was a complete, utter waste of fucking time. And I became a canvas. And I said, you know what? The players are the painters on the canvas. I just present a landscape and I let them just frolic in it.
Hmm.
And ever since then, I've played well over 100 campaigns. I've met well over 200, 300, 400 people, over the course of my lifetime of playing. I used to think I was interested in publishing stuff, but I don't have the discipline for it. And I'm not going to waste anybody's time reading the shite that I think I'm capable of writing. I'd rather they just come play.
Okay.
And that's just been my playground.
Yeah, but if I may, when you say publishing and you say you don't want to read, write the shite that you don't want to read, are you talking about like writing it out in full form, and publishing it that way? Or are you talking about finding someone to help publish it? Here's the idea, here's the plot. Now let's fill it in.
So is it like building a module, do you think, from that aspect? Like you have a great story and a great background and structure for it and you want to publish it, but you don't see
I'm just not interested in sharing it with people.
Oh, okay. That's kind of what I was asking.
It's mine.
Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree, because I don't know how to share it, because I don't really claim it as mine. It's like you could build a city, you could build some interesting NPCs, and you could build some interesting plot points.
Mhm.
It's the table that builds the story. And every
Right.
time you have a new table, to me, it's just a new story. So it's
Yeah.
like, I have a hard time taking these individual canvases that are mostly written by the variety of players at the table and claiming them as my own, because I don't
Okay.
feel like I do enough to really deserve that.
Wow, you really are self-deprecating.
When it comes to that, yeah, absolutely.
I thought I was bad. Holy shit.
So the reason why I opened up this question to y'all is because part of writing a campaign is basically balancing the good and the bad. And I wanted to figure out from your guys' perspective on what can constitute as a good campaign to write, like structurally, and what can be considered as a bad campaign to write. And, to have some pointers for maybe those new DMs out there.
You're not, when you say good and bad, you're not talking about good and evil as in terms of alignment. You're talking about
not
a
alignment.
good story and a shitty
We're not
story.
going to talk about alignment.
Okay, I just wanted to clarify.
So I'm curious what you guys have as like a rule set for writing a campaign. There are certain methods where when you start to outline a campaign, you build the introduction and you build like a subplot and a mid plot and then the conclusion. And there's multiple methods to use it. There's the 1-2-1 method where you do the introduction and there's two mid plot points. So there's like the big boss battle and then the sub boss battle, and then you have the resounding conclusion, whether it's a happy ending or a bad ending. And then there's the 1-2-2 method, which is the introduction and two mid plot points and then two finales, which I thought was really interesting because that feels like a longer and more stretched out campaign. So I'm really curious how you guys structure your campaigns. Like, what do you do first to introduce your players to your world, and how do you set the pace for that?
Well, it's interesting because I did that 3 times this week. Right? It's really it's an interesting.
This should be fresh.
Yeah, it is fresh in my mind.
And that was before lunch on Monday.
Well, and it was to me the only time I'm a little bit railroady is the first session. Because you've got to figure out a way to create that starting point, but do it in such an organic way they don't feel like they're being purposely shoved.
Right.
And sometimes they know each other, sometimes they don't. My favorite way to do it is I start by setting the stage. The stage of the world, the stage of the continent, the stage of where they are, right? I like to set that stage. And then one by one, like actors or actresses, I pull them up onto the stage as I narrate out their involvement as they ascend the stage.
Right.
And then as soon as the stage is set, they're there, they're interacting with each other. Session 1 is done. Everything else from there on is open world. They're making the choices, it's organic, and they're moving through it. Now, I've frameworked multiple plot points. I've broken down their backstories. I've created lots of in-depth levels of plot, subplot, and the one thing I did unique with these 3 this time around, I don't have a finale. They're writing the arc as they move.
Huh.
The
So you guys,
the choices they're going to make as they move through the open world is going to create the arc. It's going to create subplots. It's going to create points of interest. When they treat someone like shit, they've created a point of interest. When they've ripped somebody off or made someone happy, they've created a subplot. If they've decided to ignore the big bad guy up in the fortress, well, he's still going to build his army. He's still digging for that relic. He's still moving along, doing what he's going to do.
I mean, that's basically what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It's. I think we're both.
Well, you do a lot more writing than I do.
Yeah, but
so your DM styles are more
do.
collaborative and freeform. Is that correct?
I had a session 1 note, I had a prep note the other day. It was 2 sentences. I was like,
I would say
shit.
that I do utilize that technique also, where, here's my story. Here is, and I agree, here is the first session, and yeah, you pretty much have to do this because this is the intro.
Right.
After that, I mean, if they want to go off and do their own thing, that's cool, because the way I'm writing is the nature of this story means that it can weave its way back into their path whenever I need to. I have an idea of what I want the finale to be. And for me, it's more like I will very, very subtly try to railroad them to that. But that's so far down the road that they could take, any of like 5, 6 different paths to get there.
But you do write a traditional arc.
Not really.
No?
I have an idea of an overarching theme, and then I have to fill in everything to get there.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
That's interesting. So
I don't do completely open world. If somebody really wants to go off the rails, I'll let them, But again, there are subtle ways to railroad somebody back onto the tracks with proper and subtle hooks.
I've had a player become a dishwasher in a tavern.
Oh, I thought you meant like they actually shapeshifted into a dishwasher.
No, they wandered off to a tavern, took a job as a dishwasher.
Because I did have a player who was a houseplant.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, he was a druid, but his true form was not human. It was houseplant, and he shapeshifted into a human.
Oh my gosh.
Thanks, Vince. You got it.
Well, and so on that note of the maybe not creating a traditional arc or subplot, I like to throw a lot of flavor out in the world. So 2 of the campaigns are wild magic for any arcane spell that's used.
Oh, I like that.
So
there's no divine magic because the gods are gone, and natural magic is super powerful. So since I don't have a traditional arc like you were talking about, Cher, I kind of let those flavors kind of once again drive their story, like how they want to paint their picture.
I really like that. I think in the entire game, wild magic is probably my favorite mechanic of all.
It's very unpredictable.
Yeah.
One of the players turned into a potted plant.
Yeah.
And at first, no one was sure what to do about it. Unfortunately, they remain a potted plant until someone drops them to
Was
0
their
hit
name
points.
Minth? For this latest campaign, I used Session 0 to set the stage and figure out why each character was invited to the expedition party. But then we started play with the players being offered to join the expedition to start the campaign. Ooh, that's fun.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's the
so
one. That's the one that we're doing. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm curious, how do you set the theme for your campaign, and how early do you reveal the plot to your players?
Mhm. I'll let Brian do that one.
Thanks, Gary.
Yeah.
It's the one. Yeah. What was the question? Oh, I like to set the plot right off the bat. My session 1 sets the plot, but it does it in a way that may or may not reveal that this is something much bigger. Okay, it depends on how the characters approach it. Okay, but I like the slow build. I like to get it out there right away in a way that's not like, oh, you've just been attacked by, a horde of demons and they're going to overrun the world and that is your mission. It's here's what's going on. And it does kind of leave it open that they could say, well, we want to do this, but I think, and it's tough to do, but I provide enough hooks that hopefully they make a decision that leads them down the path that follows that storyline. But I like to get the theme and the plot out usually like right away in the first few sessions, even if they don't know that it's happening.
Interesting. Even one of our chatters, Lynette, said,
Oops, sorry.
The
She
comment
said,
appeared and disappeared.
yeah.
Lynette says, I revealed my plot up front, but mostly because it is the premise. Pioneers rediscovering a lost continent. Ooh, that's fun.
I like that a lot. One of my Sunday games is based on a group called A Fool's Errand is the name of the campaign.
Mm-hmm.
And they're traveling to the Shattered Isles. And we're on like session 20 something. They still haven't gotten there yet.
So is it important?
Go ahead.
Is it important to reveal the plot at the beginning, or do you think?
I don't know. That's a really good question. I don't know.
I guess it depends on how tight. Here's another one from Gary. Start off with the big plot mission, let them figure out how to get there eventually. I mean, I guess it depends on how tight of a storyline you have. Jason, you said that you have, and also, yeah, that's a good point too, Torch. Thank you for joining us also. It depends on the pace you're trying to set. I don't mind a slow pace in a game. Again, I like that slow build. Wait. It took us. Why is that not surprising, Vince? Somehow I don't think that was all Jason's fault. I'm just saying. But no, I think it really depends, like I said, on how tight of a story you're running. If it's more of an open type campaign, then it may not it may not be as important,
Right. Yeah, which I guess is like, it's interesting that you say that, because then that just means you're just setting for how long the campaign should be, because like, as I mentioned before, the 1-2-2 method, there's the 2 separate plot endings. Like, you can actually just lead your group along, meandering about like Jason likes to do. And then it reveal the plot later on, because then you can really extend that storyline for a pretty dang long time.
Hey, Andrew.
Hi, Dorito.
Thanks for
I didn't see
joining.
that comment, by the way.
But yeah, that's a really, like, actually running a 1 or 2 shot that has nothing to do with the campaign, just to kind of get the characters you know, familiar, how they play, what to expect. Now, Andrew, do you do that though, and then kind of say, okay, now we're starting the campaign, or do you do that and that's their level 1 and 2 or whatever, and then they do the main story?
Like a prologue?
See,
That would be cool.
now you're get out of my mind, Brian, because one of the things I'm experimenting with 2 of these campaigns is I'm going to be experimenting heavily with time dilation. Because the Tuesday night and Wednesday night campaigns are based on Divergence, the second spark.
Okay.
So the year is 5 PD. So it's 5 years after Divergence and 5 years after Calamity.
Yeah. Okay.
And they all built these really cool, long-living characters, like lineage-wise. Or there's a chance they're going to come into magic and things that will extend their lives. So if we do a time dilation, we might say, okay, it's been 10 years. What was your character doing for 10 years? And they might write out an extensive adaptation to their backstory. And then we kick off a whole new intercession of the campaign. So it's going to feel more like chapters, I think.
Okay.
This time
That's
around.
fun.
It's going to feel more like chapters.
That kind of, I mean, it almost sounds like what Gary said here is a sequence of one-shots, that are linked, which is kind of an interesting way to approach it, because that gives you the opportunity to do a completely open world, but maybe there is
a mix of anthology and chapters kind of story.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And maybe there is an overarching larger story that's going on in the background that the characters may touch upon sometimes, or they might leave it alone, but it could affect the world that the characters are in. So that's kind of a really cool way to approach it too.
Yeah, that kind of reminds me of Witcher in the way when you're trying to get bounties on the board or whatever, and it could play into the story or it could not.
Well,
part of it.
And that's a really good point, Bear. One of the things I liked about The Witcher was the backwards and forwards way that the story was told. You had multiple times being used to tell a story, and it really had you thinking about the detail and who the relationships were, and to a certain degree it made sense, because with child actors it's always tricky having a 2, 3, 4 year long show sometimes, so it kind of makes sense.
I do remember that, Gary.
Oh, I love Top Secret. That was an amazing.
Yeah, that was awesome.
And that was to the earlier comment, Top Secret and Gangbusters were a great way to run 2 or 3 session one shots, like little compact chapters. And then suddenly you get to chapter 25 and you're taking on Al Capone, or
cool.
you're taking on a member of the KGB or something like that. So I do remember those days that we were kind of experimenting with different ways of doing that. Yeah.
So now that we have introduced the characters and we're starting to get them more involved into the world and it's deeper into the campaign now, how do you develop a plot hook to where, there's a turning point in the campaign? How do you guide your players along to follow that storyline?
That's a tough one, because you can never really anticipate what your players are gonna oh my god, I'm like,
because say for
I have
example,
Jason's head cold. Very eloquent tonight.
Because say for example, your characters are stronger now. Your player characters, they've become less of a victim and more of a hero. Their names have been starting to get more notoriety
they're
in the
out there
world.
creating victims.
So now they're at this point where there's going to be this change in pace in the campaign. How do you make it to where it's a different level of play now? Rather than having to struggle at the very beginning of the campaign, now we're going on to bigger, greater foes.
I think you got to give them a hook that means something to their characters beyond just, there's 10,000 gold in it if you go, slay this evil mage. And that's I think the tough part is keeping those hooks coming that give the players an impetus to say, yeah, we actually want to be involved in this storyline, and not just hop on a ship and go to the other side of the world and just fuck around. You know what I'm saying?
So would you have to create a personal sense of involvement for each of the player characters in order for them to
No, I don't think so. I think either if once you get a feel for them, yeah, exactly. Character backstory, I don't think you need to make it, adherent to everybody's backstory, but I think that with a party of 5 or 6 people, 1 or 2 of those backstories have to be able to be fit into your storyline as hooks. So that's a really good point, Andrew. And then also, you make it so that so like I said, you make it so they want to follow it.
Right.
I mean, that's too, you go the opposite, and you start out and say your head's going to rot off in 4 weeks. So there's your mission.
Oh my gosh. I mean, that will definitely propel the story forward.
I mean, there's all kinds of personal shit you can do, yes, but without making it seem like, and sometimes I think I always like
excellent question.
Yeah, I always like, that's kind of what I'm getting at, to your point, Vince, and Andrew's point. I always like to get the character's backstory into the plot, because that just makes those hooks easier to come by.
Jason?
I think I do rely pretty heavily on
is that real life? Wow.
I rely pretty heavily on backstories, character backstories.
Okay.
The creativity involved really becomes my muse. Doesn't have to be 5 pages.
Yeah.
In fact, I've got a player that she knows that if she just gives me 3 sentences, she's basically giving me carte blanche to, play with that backstory all I want. Where some people give me 6 or 7 paragraphs.
But using that as a hook, sometimes the simpler the hook, the more effective it is.
Interesting.
Yeah, it can be. Like at the beginning of all 3 sessions this week, 3 backstories are in play already. But not to the point where it's going to over-evolve or hyper-evolve, because they become very usable hooks.
Right. So how do you balance your plot that you've already written with the character backstories? How do you do it without it being oversaturated?
In an
on
open
either
world,
side?
it evolves with me. They blend. Somehow they just blend. That's when we used to talk about the skills to be a DM, that's where the adaptation and improv kicks in.
Torch says,
Yep, sorry.
See, that time was Brian's fault, not mine.
as a player, I love when my backstory intersects with the campaign. Makes everything feel more real.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then, and again, there's that impetus to go follow those hooks instead of just saying, "Yeah, we'll go."
Well, a really good example is in the Greying Lands. We're about to pursue for Jet's backstory. She's going home to the temple for the first time in a long time. She's discovered some kind of spooky information about the librarian of the temple. She's been under the impression that the Truth Seekers are this big, happy-go-lucky, always doing good kind of thing. And one of my favorite things about playing with the Cobalt Soul, there's doing things because they have purpose, and there's doing things because you want to maintain the status quo of the environment. So she's about to walk into the heart of her backstory, and it's going to be a shocker to everybody.
Ooh.
It's going to be huge,
This is an
Interesting.
easy one here too. Make some of your NPCs
Oh yeah,
part of the. I mean,
narrative
campaign three,
player characters for the win.
campaign 3 of Critical Role. That's what Matt Mercer did with
Yeah,
Bertram Bell.
yeah.
So that that just brought him into the story right there. So
Well, and I liked to your earlier point, Bear, when you talk about finales, because it just suddenly reminded me. A lot of people didn't like the way second season ended. It felt like there were no heroes, there was no parade, there was no
I
big
honestly liked it.
trip. Well, I liked the idea of the story because it reminds me, and I think it should remind anyone in the campaign, sometimes you're the only witness to your heroic journey.
Hence
You may come to an end of a finale and you're like, it feels good, but no one else is ever going to know what I just did.
the term unsung heroes.
Yeah. Very true.
then you have a whole nother campaign to go find a bard to write a song about your heroic journeys.
Just don't hire Scanlon. He's an idiot.
Yeah,
He's high
so
all the
that's
time.
actually interesting. You guys brought up good points. It just actually made me think, like, plot hooks don't even necessarily have to be events. They could be NPCs in the world that can hook people in.
It could be an object.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be like, oh, a meteor came and just squashed a whole village. Now you gotta, it could be just a person just trying to give you like a back alley deal, and then you come up short-ended or something. It's interesting.
I mean, I don't, it's not easy, and I certainly don't want this to sound like I'm, toot my own horn and saying that I'm some kind of magical, writer, because I'm not. But I don't know. I've just learned to kind of adjust on the fly. You have an arsenal of small little tricks like we're talking about. It could be an event, it could be an object, it could be a person, it could be anything. And you just I mean, so here's a good example. So on
Ooh, Vince says mine was a ghost ship.
There you go.
That's so cool.
Very true.
So on Monday, to move, so my party was traveling from Baldur's Gate to Waterdeep. Okay. And I figured as part of the way to continue the main plot point that they would go overland. And they're like, well, we want to cut the time in third and take a ship. And in my head, as I'm like, okay, so you go down to the docks, and in my head, I'm like, fuck, well, there goes tonight's entire encounter. So as they're on the ship, though, and as we're role-playing and playing this, I'm like, okay, I can make an adjustment and still get where I need to go, and allow them to make their own decision without making it obvious and saying like, well, all the ships sunk and the weather's bad and whatever, and you have to take the overland route. So really, it's just, it kind of comes back to improv and just, again, being able to adjust on the fly and thinking about it like, not thinking about it like, this is my rigid story that I wrote and we're now on chapter 3 and you got to do this. No, it's, here's the intro, here's the first 1 to 3 sessions where, you're going to do this because I just dumped you into this. And here's our goal. And again, you can take multiple paths to get there. So I personally think it helps to write this way so that you don't corral yourself into a storyline that may or may not entice the players to follow.
Right. And I bet this is a muscle that develops over time as a DM too.
Definitely.
I'm sure that like at the beginning, I think it is probably more to script, more than likely.
Yeah, definitely. At least in my experience, it's taken a long time to develop that.
Right. And so as like a beginner DM, would it just be better to just kind of structure it more or less to a T? And then, as you get more comfortable, you start to add more what ifs to the storyline?
Yeah, I think you could totally do that. I noticed, and I've mentioned this before in the past, I noticed in the Horde of the Dragon Queen campaign that our party took a 4-session detour that had nothing to do with the published module that actually led to more than half of my story arc that I'm currently writing, and also added in to that published campaign as kind of a parallel.
What?
Yeah, so that's another thing
so
is
cool.
find a campaign and find those spots in the campaign where you can give the players a little bit of free reign without wrecking your timeline or your storyline. And that's a good way to kind of develop that. It's like, okay, I'm in a structured campaign. I'm gonna let them go off to the side a little bit, and then how do I get them back without making it feel?
And I know we've used this as a sample already, but it's one of the reasons why I like the way The Witcher storytelling was.
Yeah.
Because in between the travels, it was like, rescuing a soul or destroying a monster or saving a dragon, or there were all these little interludes. But while they were having the interludes, the main plot was being played out by the characters a little bit.
Yeah.
Was he going to sleep with her? Were they going to fall in love? Which character was dying while trying to save a dragon? And in the background, the great army marching northward, to take over the world. It's like, to me, that feels more immersive. That word that we're chasing, immersive, right? We're always chasing that, because the more immersive we can make people feel, the more they're going to help. They're going to be more involved. Yeah. I've got so many players that doodle and do sketches, and they describe something they want to do or look like, or they want to make a piece of armor or make a weapon, or they want to do this and they want to do that. To me, that's the immersion factor that draws them in.
Ogren says you can also guide the direction by adding tasks that need to be done before the others.
Yeah, it's true. It helps. It does help from time to time.
Like the group needs a charter to be allowed to explore the ruins.
The grizzly old gnome behind the paper pushing desk, stacks of
that was our last session.
Really?
Going to find that charter.
What are you here for? You're here for an application. Well, here you go. Fill these out in triplicate. Fill these out in quadruplicate. And come back tomorrow.
Answer me these questions 3.
Yeah, exactly.
The other side.
Yeah. It's so true.
Or that favors for favors. Yeah,
there you go. Yeah, so now that we have introduced our characters and we've created the world and we've given a plot, and also now our characters have become heroes, world renowned. Now we're at the conclusion, or we're heading towards the conclusion of the campaign. So what guidelines do you have set for when things are good or when things end terribly? And is it good when it ends badly? Like if it's a bad ending?
Well,
Brian?
Well, first of all, I have a problem with the term bad ending. Because if the players are enjoying the game up till the end, there's no such thing as a bad ending. Okay? If it doesn't end with the ticker tape parade and the fanfare like we were just talking about earlier, that's not necessarily a bad ending unless all the players are like, well, that sucked. That was a really bad ending.
Right.
So, I mean...
Well, would you consider a TPK a bad ending, or would you consider that as an opportunity?
I would consider that as an opportunity.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I'm the same way about that.
Because it's a fantasy game, and we've talked about this also. It's a fantasy game. There's no end. There's no you're dead. Okay? Yeah. Truly there isn't. Even if somebody, murders you with a fireball, incinerates your body, turns the ashes into paste, blows up the paste, sprinkles it all throughout the cosmos. I mean, give me a break. There's a wish spell, okay? Or you create some. There's an odd crystal ball that nobody's ever heard of, and it can do anything. I mean, I see it as a total opportunity. So again, if the players are really upset and leave that campaign not feeling fulfilled,
that's a bad
ending. That's a bad ending.
Okay. Yeah.
But if they die fighting, Tiamat, okay, and they all die, but it was like one of the, it was one of those things that they're going to be talking about for years, that's not a bad ending. And then that either brings that that party or that group of people back to the table to start a new campaign to go find their fucking souls somewhere. Yeah, I mean,
says a heroic death may be the ideal ending.
Yeah, so I don't like to use the term that's a bad ending.
But it's a fair assessment because
it is a fair assessment. But I like to not focus on that.
Well, it does bring into light that as a DM, you always want to be reflective about your sessions and about your campaign. If you want to improve and do better every single time, you want to continue to get better and continue to improve, you're going to want to know, how's everybody feeling about the campaign? How are we doing? But I think to get ready for a finale, as you feel the campaign age and things are happening and they're hitting their stride and the intrigue is playing out, somebody finds a copper ring that turns out to be a wish spell, right?
I kind of like it when it's not black and white. Okay, it's the ending where you all live and you defeat the bad guy, or you don't and we're just done. I kind of like it where you defeat him, but 3 of you died. One of you's souls was sucked into this, strange artifact. I mean, again, there's a million things that you can do to leave it open-ended.
I mean, I've had it where only 1 or 2 players survive, and it happens, but they kind of win.
I make my players fill out a top bottom 3 things about the session every week.
That's actually an extremely good idea.
Yeah, I think that's a great
nice,
idea.
Dorito.
I do that verbally. I don't do it I stop at the end of the session and we take 5 minutes to talk about it. And I say, okay, how do we do? What are you thinking? Anything I can work on?
Every 10th session of my games, we all do a 360 review and we have a stand up and
although, to that point.
But no, all kidding aside, Andrew, that is a fantastic fucking idea.
Another good thing to do from time to time with your campaigns is take an extra half hour or hour and review everybody's character sheet. Make sure they're doing everything right. Make sure their hit points are accurate. Make sure they're using spells. Make sure they're doing things that they haven't forgotten about. And use that as an opportunity just to shoot the shit. And just catch a quick pulse, a quick vibe of how it's going. Because I'll help you get to the finale.
Yes. So basically for the conclusion of campaigns, there's always a silver lining, regardless if on the perspective of how the ending should be. So I'm curious, what was your guys's, and chat, feel free to jump in. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. What is your most memorable finale to any campaign? Like whether you've been a part of it as a player or as a DM, what finale stands out to you? What made it stand out?
I'm going to blow your mind right now. My answer is really short. I've never actually finished a campaign, either as a DM or a player.
Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for this farce that we've introduced you to. We will try to do better next time. My apologies.
Oh, this is, there you go, right there.
DM rage quitting and ghosting all of us?
Wow.
So that's a bad ending, I think.
Oh yeah, that's a bad ending.
Yeah, when we were kids, we would just get bored of the story, or the DM would get bored of DMing and we'd switch, and we did a lot of, just like when we got bored, instead of forcing ourselves to finish it, we would just stop and either play another game or start another one.
Oh man.
In fact, not Gary's campaign, but Jeff's campaign, who's not here tonight, he's also running us through one, and I'm level 19. So that is the highest level character that I've ever had. I've never actually had a level 20 character up until this campaign.
Pull back up Linolette's comment.
Yeah, wasn't that great? I love that.
Linolette says, our characters were removed from reality for having tampered with the timeline and changing history.
That's awesome.
So Loki. That's like pure Loki right there.
That's awesome.
Pure Loki. I love
That's
it.
amazing.
Yeah.
Oh,
I have finished at least well over 40 campaigns.
As a DM or a player? DM.
As a DM.
Okay.
My favorite was a post-apocalyptic Forgotten Realms campaign.
Mm-hmm.
It was set in the idea that these great rift wars took place, and the entire world of Toril and the continents that made up Toril were sundered and shredded, and it allowed me to get rid of all the legend and lore of the original Forgotten Realms and start building not a bad point, and start building a new world.
Mm.
And we played for almost 2 years, and finally they got to the point where this creature called the Pestilent One was this great titan who had absorbed all the chaos, the 9 layers of hell, and the abyss, and had manifested itself into a titan. And it was now striding across the landscape, heading towards a celestial gate. Well, once they figured out this was gradually happening over time, this one particular group had been chasing rumor, chasing relics. They were finding powerful artifacts, and they finally found the book at the
700.
They had finally found the book within the ruins of Candlekeep.
Mm-hmm.
And that book allowed them to decipher when the gate was going to arrive and how they were going to defend it. So while they were deciphering and defending the gate, they had to figure out a way to send the gate away. And it turns out that this has to be done every 500 years. And so somebody's backstory was linked to that.
What?
And that link kept pulling them deeper and deeper into it. But it split the party.
No,
person-
don't split the party.
The person who was like expected to solve this riddle, decipher the gate, put all the heavens and the alignments back in order, they were doing skill checks to do all that.
Oh, that's
Meanwhile, 2 or 3 other of the fighters or defenders of the party were blocking the gate and keeping things out. And then on the edge of the cliff, the remaining of the party were commanding all the armies that were fighting Legion that was like swarming up the cliffside. So you had this 3-layer like immersive event going on that was ebbing and flowing, that's ebbing and flowing and creating difficulty. And, friends are dying and NPCs are barely alive, but they're standing up and casting their last fireball and creating this. At the very end, at the finale, she finally figured out the last clue. And it was the alignment of all of the prime deities in a certain celestial configuration. But she couldn't figure out the 9th one because she was the 9th one. And so when she walked through the gate closed, and the shadow castle disappeared. They never saw their friend again. Right? So she was the ninth heaven. And the remaining players, 2 of them died in the aftermath of the combat. 4 of them survived. But each of the survivors got to tell an epilogue. They got to epilogue their characters. They got to talk about what they became and what they did with their time. And what was amazing
that was like the end credits. That's amazing.
And what was amazing is as they did their
oh my gosh, we kept crying.
as they did their epilogues, I was able to do an epilogue as well.
Ooh.
And so once all their epilogues were done, I then did an epilogue for them. And it was like, it's 20 years in the future. You've come back to the site of the Celestial Gate where they've erected a new temple to your friend. The pavilions are all set up. The festival's in full force. And it's just this kind of gradual storytelling of, the immersion pulling away and giving it that level of conclusion, that level of, I got to tell my story. I got to epilogue. I got to create this amazing finale, but their choices made the difference.
Yeah,
there
it
were
made a mark on your
possible endings. There were 5 possible endings.
Jeez,
for that
Jason,
event.
it was supposed to be 2, not 5.
There were 5.
You're breaking the rules.
Yeah, I'm always breaking the rules. And I was so proud of the way they took that role playing and just ran with it. They just ran with it, and it was amazing.
That's awesome.
Absolutely one of my favorite campaigns. But it's a hard sell for me because when you finish so many campaigns and you offer up epilogues and conclusions and finales, they all become my favorite. They really do, because it's rare for a lot of players. It's very rare for a lot of players to get to an end of a campaign. And that's the affirmation that they give me, that trust to let that possibly happen. And I love it. Absolutely love this game. It's amazing.
That's awesome. That's like the holy grail.
I don't think there's anything left to be said after that, honestly.
That
I
was
think
awesome.
That's a great way to wrap.
Sorry, little Alina Let. I didn't mean to make you cry. I apologize.
No, that's really amazing. I'm rewriting the end of my campaign. Oh my gosh. That's awesome.
Yeah, what a
That's
great
really
way
awesome.
to end the episode.
Yeah. All right. Well, on that note, should we do rollies?
Oh,
yes.
Fuck yeah.
Hey, chat, if you want to join in on rollies, feel free to do so and type in your numbers.
I'm feeling Rick and Morty toxicity tonight.
I got a
Little Rick and Morty.
14.
Little Rick and Morty.
Ooh, new dice.
I'm going to go Sailor Moon.
I got
do
a
it.
Well, Rick and Morty just fucked me. Don't fuck me, Gil. That's a 5.
All right, what'd y'all get?
I got a 14.
5.
I got an 8.
An 8. All right, I guess it's on me.
It's on you, Brian.
Well, this was Sharon, as always. Thank you for putting these notes together. This is a really good conversation. I think it's something that is
There you go.
not very it's not easy, it really is not easy writing a campaign, but with so many amazing DMs running so many games these days, there's a lot of really good stories out there. AKA the one that Jason just told us. That's awesome. So, chat, thank you all for joining us. As always, we have some new faces, or I should say new names, some regulars. Thank you all. Sharon, where can we find you?
Hi, guys. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Lawfully Chaotic. You guys were amazing tonight. And Dorito, congrats on that nat 20 that you rolled in your head. So you can always find me here at BarryBot on the Instagram Spaces, and you could also catch me on Saturdays at the Graying Lands campaign from 4 p.m. to 7 p.m. Pacific time, where I play a druid Kalistar named Mayra. You could catch the show at the TTRPG YouTube and Twitch channel, and also at the Lawfully Chaotic Studios YouTube. Hey, we're expanding here. So yeah, as always, thank you everyone for joining. Hey, Jason, where can we find you?
If you head over to my Twitch, all my LinkedIn socials are there at TTRPG Academy. We have a great Discord of almost 400 people that hang out, play, chat, do some fun stuff. And come hang out with us next week because we're going to talk about the gods of D&D. We're going to talk about the fun of playing a god. The Raven Queen, Ioun, Orcus, and all the fun ways that gods can be pulled into games. So much fun. So much fun.
Oh, Lynette wants to join the Discord. Hey.
I will.
Awesome. And you, as always, you can find me at RPG and Co on Instagram or Linktree at the same rpgandco.com. Join us next week for that discussion. After that, we're going to be taking the rest of the month off for vacation and as
holidays,
said,
baby,
and some planning and programming, and come back strong next year. So until then, be kind and play games. Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Bye, guys. Good night.